this video is on converting between percents and decimals. Our learning target is being able to write percents as decimals and being able to write decimals as percents. Make sure you are ready to take some notes. So let's first talk about how to write percents as decimals. So if we have 7%, we want to write that as a decimal. So there's two different methods. First one, we can write it as a fraction and then convert to a decimal because we already know how to convert between fractions and decimals. So 7% we know is written as 7/100 because percents out of 100. 7/100 cannot be simplified anymore. So I know that because it's hundredths, then I know it would be written like this as 7/100. Method 2 is just moving the decimal 2 places to the left, because really what we're doing, 7/100 is the same as taking 7 and dividing by 100. And when we divide by 10 or 100 or 1,000, we're really just moving the decimal however many zeros there are. So 7%, and we move the decimal 2 places to the left. So when I look at 7%, I don't see a decimal point, which means that it's really, the decimal point is really just right after the 7, because remember 7 is the same as 7.0. So then what I do is I move the decimal 2 places to the left, so I go 1, 2. I don't have anything in this spot right to the left of the 7, so I add a 0. And then we always want to make sure we have a 0 in front of our decimal, so then it would be 7/100, which would match with our other method. Let's try another one together. So we look at 54%, writing it as a decimal. 54%, remember, is the same as 54/100, and then 54/100 would just be written like that as a decimal. 54%, if we look at the other way, just moving the decimal 2 to the left, I can put my decimal right after the 54, and then I move it 2 spots to the left, put a 0 right in front of that decimal, so I would also get 54/100. Pause and try number 2 and 3 on your own, and then come back. So 4/10% is kind of tricky. So 4/10%, if we just use the method where we move the decimal 2 to the left, I'm going to start where my decimal is and go 1, 2. I have to be really careful to actually move it 2 spots. If there's not 2 spots to move, then I add a 0 in front. So then my answer would be 0.004, which would be 4 thousandths. And then 84 and 2/10%, take my decimal, go 2 to the left, add a 0 before, so it would be 0.842, which we would say as 842 thousandths. Okay, now if we have decimals and we want to write it as a percent, this should say write it as a percent. So we can use both methods. So 4/10, write it as a fraction. So 4/10 we know would be 4/10, and then convert to a percent. Remember, to convert to a percent, we want to make it hundredths on the bottom. So times 10 times 10. So we get 40/100. Drop the hundredth, and it would be 40%. Method 2, move decimal 2 places to the right, because this time if we're making it a percent, we're timesing it by 100. There's 2 zeros, so we're moving it 2 to the right. So we start with 4/10. We're going to take our decimal. 2 to the right would be 1, 2. I make room for another 0 that I can add in there, so add my 0. Here's my new decimal, which is 40.0, or just 40. So then it would be 40%. Let's try a couple more. If we have 5/10, I can take 5/10 and I'm going to erase that actually. And then I'm going to take our decimal and we're going to go 2 to the right, because this time we're changing to a percent. So add a 0 right in there. My decimal, if my decimal's at the end, then it doesn't really necessarily need to stay there at all. So then it just turns to 50 and we add our percent sign. Okay, you pause and try the rest on your own and then come back and check your work. So 34 hundredths, I go 2 to the right, would end up being 34%. 9 hundredths, 2 to the right, would be 9%. 9 and 23 hundredths, I go 2 to the right, and it would be 923%. And then if we look down here, each day Rio and his dog walk 625,000 miles. What percent of a mile do they walk? So we're gonna go 2 to the right, which is gonna be between the 2 and the 5. So I need to keep that decimal in there. Even though I'm changing it to a percent, sometimes there's a decimal in a percent. So then it would be 62 and 5/10%. Last thing that I want to make sure that you either find in your notes and circle or highlight or star or something, or if you can't find it, then please make sure you write this down. When we're changing from a percent to decimal, we move the decimal point 2 places to the left. And when we're going from decimal to percent, we move the decimal point 2 places to the right. Super important for you to remember. That's all I have for you. Keep your notes. Have a good day.